Members, it's the appointed time. We have a quorum. It's time to start the meeting on the panel on transport. First item, information papers issued since last meeting. On the 19th of May 2023, after the meeting, we have received a total of 6 information papers. We have issued 6 information papers to members. That is agenda item number 1. Any question? If there's no question, the next meeting will be held on the 14th of July 2023. In the meeting, we will discuss the progress update on the traffic and transport strategy study and the real-time adaptive traffic signal system, 2 items. Any comments on these 2 items to be discussed? Then on to agenda item number 3. We invite the administration to join us. Members can press the button to speak should you want to speak regarding the improvement works at Chunting Interchange, for short TTI. In accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedures, if members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the items discussed today, you should declare the nature of the relevant interest before you speak. After the administration is seated, they will walk us through this agenda item using PowerPoint slides.
好，如果 OK 就
Amy, when you're ready. I will have an opening remark. Good morning, Chairman. On 87 TI improvement works at Chunting Interchange, for short TTI, we will seek members' views on the funding application for this item to Category A. TTI is the transportation hub of Chunwan, Kwaichong, and Tingyi districts. During peak hours, it has a very high traffic volume. The slip road and the roundabout has slow-moving traffic. We anticipate that the traffic flow will continue to grow, resulting in further traffic congestion. To alleviate the traffic pressure, we propose a couple of measures to alleviate the traffic of TTI and to enhance road safety. We estimate the total amount of the project will be $1.136 billion. We hope to have the endorsement of members. Then we will apply for funding from the PWSC and the FC later on. I will invite my colleague to walk members through the specifics of the item. Then we will be happy to take questions. Ms. Julie Oh, Chief Engineer from the Highways Department. Ms. Julie Oh. Chairman, members, good morning. I will walk members through the specifics of the Public Works project. In order to alleviate the traffic congestion problem, we have proposed a total of 5 measures. First, we will construct a traffic lane exclusively for left-turning traffic. For the vehicles driving on the approach road on Chunwan Road, some 60% of the traffic are Tingyi bound. They can take this new route and they do not have to go through the TTI after this measure is implemented. Let us take a look at the situation upon the commissioning of the measure. From this photo montage, you will see a slope, and we will have to cut slope to allow us enough space for this public works project. Above the TTI, there is a taxical vehicle bridge. There is a section of the existing vehicle bridge not yet in operation. We propose expanding this not yet operating portion so that it will connect to the great traffic on Taxico Road. Some 55% of the vehicles are Tengyi bound. These vehicles can take the new vehicular bridge and they do not have to go through the TTI. Let us take a look at the situation upon commissioning of the new road. From Kwai Fook Road, turning left into Texaco Road. This is the starting point of the new slip road. Then, further forward, you will see the new vehicular bridge, and that is the view from another perspective. We also recommend the construction of a new slip road to connect the down ramp of Tsuen Wan Road, Kowloon bound. A quarter of the vehicles from Texaco Road towards Ma Tau Pa Road. These vehicles do not have to go through the TTI and they can take this new slip road. For the above three enhancement measures, they have a common factor. That is, they aim at diverting traffic so the traffic does not have to go through the roundabout. The fourth proposed project is to widen the eastbound traffic lane of Texaco Road. For the picture at the top left corner, we will make use of the central divider to widen the traffic lane. In this photo montage, we can see the proposed works number 3 and number 4, and this is the anticipated situation upon commissioning. This is the new slip road on the right, that is the widened eastbound lane of Texaco Road. Regarding the fifth measure, that is the roundabout itself, we will widen the traffic lanes, and we will also make junction improvement works in order to provide better sightline for road users so that they can enter the roundabout more smoothly. Upon implementation of these 5 measures, we will be able to substantially improve the traffic situation of the roundabout. Regarding the specifics of the project, based on the money of the day prices, we estimate that the preliminary cost is $1.136 billion. If we have support from members, we will seek endorsement from the PWSC, and then we will apply for funding from the Finance Committee. We expect to get started with the construction after approval from the Finance Committee, and we will finish number 3 and number 4 within 2 years. For the remaining works, as they entail quite complicated procedures, we expect that it will take 1 more year. This is my introduction. Thank you. 5 members in total have pressed the button to speak in order. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Mr. Tong Li-Tie, Mr. Chen Han-pan, Dr. Lo Wai-Kok, and Mr. Frankie Yik. 4 minutes each member. Question and answer. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, please. TTI is the important transportation hub of Tsuen Wan, Kwai Chung, and Tengyi area. Traffic congestion is quite serious and has been plaguing the residents living nearby for a decade or so. With population growth in the district, it is anticipated that traffic congestion will get more serious. I support these 5 measures to divert and alleviate traffic of TTI, especially for the direction from the east to the west. These projects should be able to relieve the traffic pressure. But then let's take a look at the amount. $1.136 billion are not a small amount. I understand that 5 measures are involved. In the panel on transport, we discuss policies. In the PWSC, I hope that the government can provide a more detailed breakdown of the cost. The difficulty of these 5 measures does vary, especially for the slope cutting works, turning left and turning right. It involves a very technical and complicated procedure. Regarding Item B, the construction of a single-lane vehicular bridge of some 90 meters in length and the associated slip road of some 210 meters in length at Texaco Road westbound to connect to an existing vehicular bridge section above TTI towards Sengyi. The administration introduced to us the section of the vehicular bridge that is not yet in operation. It has been around for 2 decades or so. Right now, it seems to me a bridge to nowhere. In the 1990s, Phase 2 and Phase 3 were supposed to connect the bridge to a spot, but somehow that was not implemented. That was not accounted for in the information papers, and I'd like to seek clarification from the administration so that the citizens will not think that it is an uncompleted project. There is actually a reason behind. The administration expects that within 3 years, the projects will be completed if these 5 projects are carried out in parallel. On the one hand, it will create road safety issues, and I'd like the administration to explain how to strike a balance, whether you will carry out the work as soon as possible or not. Cut sloping. Slope cutting will also give rise to problems. Well, please allow time for the administration to respond. Whether safety or traffic congestion, these are also my concerns. Administration, Mr. Tony Chung. Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. Last week, we have started tendering in parallel in the Public Works Subcommittee. When we received the results, we will update the estimation to provide members with more detailed information. There is a bridge that is not yet in operation in Chunwan New Town and for the reclamation project in Chunwan. Back then, in 1980, the government expected traffic demands, so the government had designed a series of measures to be implemented in 3 phases. TTI was the Phase 2 of the construction project. It was completed in 1955. During construction, it was considered for Phase 3. Texaco Road Bridge would be extended towards the north. We were afraid that would affect the traffic situation. Well, we didn't have enough time. Next member, you can save it for later. Mr. Zhong Nitze. Thank you, Chairman. Investment in infrastructures to improve traffic is definitely worth our support. As Mr. Chen Xiu-hong mentioned, the impression is that traffic demand, road demand, smoother traffic, and that is exactly why the bridge to nowhere has been around for 26 years, so that the ordinance, the protection of the harborfront ordinance, could not be put in place. More often than not, the traffic congestion in TTI is affecting the traffic in Chunwan and Kwaichong because of the tailback. I'd like to know from the administration you should get to the root of the problem, actually. You should tell us the future growth in vehicular traffic flow instead of solving the problem only when it arises. Previously, there were unforeseen circumstances, such as a problem of the bridge to nowhere. Thank you, Chairman. I have to draw a line. Administration, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up, on what I said. Mr. Tony Jay also mentioned that for the third phase, because of the protection of the harbor ordinance, the reclamation was cancelled. So that unactivated bridge or flyover was decommissioned. In response to Mr. Tony Jay, indeed, we conducted a TIA based on the population of Hong Kong and also the matrix of employment. We did some estimate, but upon completion of this project, the capacity of the roundabout will be boosted hugely, and we do not see any scenario where there is a capacity situation. Mr. Tony Jay, how long will this capacity be able to cope with future demand? How many years ahead of us will this new capacity be able to cope? If I may add, upon completion, the design or the DFC ratio or design flow capacity ratio in 2026 is going to be 1.19. Upon completion, it will be 0.68 in terms of DFC ratio. So the DFC ratio will be substantially increased as a result of this project. The vehicles using this TTI can use the slip road to go to Chingyi or Lantau, and on Taxical Road, the 8-grade Chairman, you have the data for 5 to 6 years. In 2031 is going to be hitting 0.79. So are we going to be okay for 15 years without any problems? Any projection there, please? Now with this DFC ratio, it would become saturated if it hits 1. Now this is going to take us to 0.68. How soon will this hit 1? How long will it last? Mr. Zhang. Well, upon completion, we would have a target together with the TD, and this will take us up to 2031. And the DFC ratio will be kept at a pretty low level, and we don't experience any problems going forward. Well, I'm sure you should come prepared for these questions at the PWSC. Dr. Lo Kwok, Chairman, thank you. With these improvement works at the Chun Ching interchange, I'm fully in support because the traffic is terribly busy and there is traffic bound for different areas in the roundabout, and it is crying out for an improvement. I've got 2 points to make here. First, about the motorists. You should have proper signage to guide the motorists to avoid any mistakes. With this improvement work, let's say one is bound for Tsuen Wan Town Centre, it would be hard to get there unless you use a GPS, because there is pretty heavy traffic and it would be hard for you to navigate the congested road space, and there is also the one-way road. I used the GPS and I was guided to the opposite side of the road. I mean, the GPS got nothing to do with you, but the road signage should be properly provided. In particular, there is some traffic bound for different places. In some cases, the slip road can take you to different places, but all of a sudden the road sign would disappear as you proceed forward. So I hope that you would have a look at this, and from the point of view of the motorists, how can they be guided to where they really want to go. The second point is also related. For these road signs, many a time they are covered by vegetation. Now, these are important roads. The vegetation is important. But if the trees are fast growing and they have a really huge crown, it would be hard for you to trim them fast enough. It does happen a lot in the new territories, and you are really making life difficult for the motorists. So much for the road signs and signage. I'm not just talking about these roads, and I hope you will pay attention to the same problem with other roads in Hong Kong. Chairman, thank you, Dr. Lo. I defer to the TD. Mr. Cheng. Thank you, Dr. Lo, for the comments. Now for the TTI improvement work, both in the course of work and post work, we will review all the road facilities, including the road signage and directional signs, to tie in with the changes to facilitate the motorists when they are getting in and out of the roundabout. The member mentioned the signage being blocked by the vegetation or trees. We'll liaise with the highways and the LCSD for them to carry out inspection and trim back on the vegetation. And this is an ongoing exercise to make sure road safety. Dr. Lo, the road signs being covered by the trees, and I think the departments concerned should pay particular attention. You should consider the types of species to be planted. These are important infrastructural roads. Many times with NT, it is a regular occurrence to have the signage blocked by the trees. Mr. Frankie Yik? Yes, indeed, I'd like to respond to Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. The location of the directional signs is indeed a problem. Will the engineers be trying to figure out where they should be? Now, and the road signs normally would disappear behind the trees and you can't find them. Now, for these TTI, I use Chunwan Road quite a lot. I go down the roundabout and move into Taxico Road. Now, there is a problem there. For Taxico Road, the vehicle coming down from Tai Wo Hao Road is pretty fast, and it does pose some risks for the vehicles. How can you make sure that the vehicles coming down will be slower? I do see some risks myself because I use this quite a lot. I welcome this project, though. There is a question raised by Mr. Chen Shu-hong, which remains unanswered. In the course of work, how awful the situation is going to be. It would be okay upon completion, but at the moment, this is a really heavily used junction, chock-a-block with traffic. If the arrangement is not made well enough, I'm concerned about the chaos that this will descend into. Mr. Cheung? Chairman, in the course of work, we would attach a great deal of importance to road safety. We'll also make sure that the traffic flows smoothly. We will deal with them carefully. During the daytime, in the course of work, we will maintain the existing number of traffic lanes to maintain the traffic flow. In terms of road safety, when we implement the traffic measures, in particular when the slope cutting work is undertaken, in view of the heavy traffic nearby, we will be erecting the guard barriers and fences, and we would select the right machinery. There will be workstation to be erected to make sure that things are going to be safe for the traffic. Now, for the vehicles coming down from Chunwan Road, there is a slip road there. In our review exercise, we will be providing the right signage. There will be a reduced speed sign to improve the safety when traffic is coming into the roundabout. Now, to the right-hand side, from Taxical Road, the vehicles coming down are pretty fast. So when you're coming out of Chun Wan Road, it poses some risks. I'm not sure how you can reduce the speed of the traffic coming down to make sure that the traffic coming out of Chun Wan Road will be able to get into the roundabout in a safe manner. Okay, is that okay? Mr. Ching? Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much for the reminder. Indeed, we will review the road signs to see, to identify areas where we should improve the situation and also to improve the speeding, the speed signs. Mr. Chen Hock-Fong, I don't go there much, but I sometimes get there as a motorist myself. That this is indeed an overall a global situation in Hong Kong, not just TTI. For roundabouts in particular newly developed areas, there are roundabouts, and I mean you expect the traffic flow to be not high, but when the traffic flow is heavy, these kind of roundabouts will not be the answer to the problem. TTI, as mentioned, as members alluded to, there are newly qualified drivers who find it difficult to get out of the junction. If you have too many exits in a roundabout, it would be less effective. If there are 3 exits, normally the first exit would be really full of traffic and people are trying to vie for the right of way, and accidents are liable to happen. So have you ever considered turning into a signalized junction? It would be, in my view, far more effective than roundabouts. There are so many problems with the existing roundabouts. If traffic accidents occur, there will be a tail back all the way. I've got some friends who are running factories there. If there are accidents there will be a very serious tail back there. I won't object to this one, but in the long run, are you going to be optimizing the roundabouts or possibly improve them in such a way that it would be meeting the needs of the modern day traffic? TD, Mr. Ching? Chairman, on Mr. Chen's question, the roundabouts are suitable for the traffic situation. If we turn the junction into signalized junction, it would increase the traffic. It would worsen the traffic situation because if we signalize this roundabout, we may be able to regulate the traffic flow, but it will not be the answer to the problem. In this roundabout, as Ms. Orr said a moment ago, we will see a reduction in the amount of traffic. And with all these improvement measures, it would be easier for the traffic to get out of or get into the roundabout. So signalized crossing may not be the answer to the problem there.
Mr. Chen Hock-Fong, any follow-up? No follow-up. Next, Mr. Luk Chung-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. TTI can be said to be a medium surgery, if not a major one. Residents are asking why other enhancement measures are not put in place. For this traditional roundabout, usually vehicles will occupy the left lane, whereas no drivers will take the inner lane. There will be tailback or even give rise to traffic accidents. Mr. Chen Hock-Fong mentioned traffic lights, but the administration said that is not recommended. What about for spiral roundabout? Will the administration consider this measure? That is my first question. Chun Wan Road is quite a congested road. It is nearing saturation point. For Kwai Ting Interchange and TTI, In this connection, does the administration have any other plan to widen Tsuen Wan Road? Next, for TTI, above it, there is a bridge or a flyover. It has been around for 2 to 3 decades, since the 1980s. What was the government's plan? What was it to be connected to? Was it Texaco Road? Is there no more such a plan? This is a commonly asked question. Does the administration have any response to these comments? For the initial design, does anyone know about the initial design? As I said, for the initial design, Phase 3 of Texaco Road, back then, it was estimated that the reclamation project of Tsuen Wan, that is the area of TTI, there would be much more traffic right now. This flyover will extend further northwards towards Texaco Road. After TTI, it will be connected to a great traffic for Kwai Fook Road and Yeong Ok Road. The traffic there can be diverted and they can reach the flyover without having to go past the roundabout. But Phase 3 was a rather large-scale project. The flyover was to be further extended northwards to the thoroughfares in the north. But ideally, we should limit the scale, and the flyover should be connected to the great traffic on Texaco Road. This would suffice to solve the traffic congestion problem right now. Back then, we had Tsuen Wan reclamation projects in Discovery Park. There was a trunk road to be built to connect it to Sha Tin. That is the background. For the design of the roundabout, can we actually adopt the design of a spiral roundabout? The alignment is actually rather simple. There are actually only 2 traffic lanes in a spiral roundabout. Through diversion, motorists can exit the roundabout on the outer circle. But for this roundabout, there are 3 traffic lanes in total, so it is not appropriate to convert it into a spiral roundabout. What about widening Tsuen Wan Road? Is there any forward-looking plan? Thank you, member. For the widening work of Tsuen Wan Road, we are carrying out an investigation study. Later this year, in the second half, we will gazette this project. My turn. I drive past these roads on a daily basis. It's been close to 2 decades for me. We have been asking for the first project item for almost 1 decade. Now we can finally see its implementation. Well, I believe with this traffic lane, Tsuen Wan Road and TTI will not have any traffic congestion anymore. We very much hope that you will start this construction project as soon as possible, but then this is very sensitive in the meantime. If you have to close the road, the whole section of TTI will be paralyzed, so to speak. I hope that there will not be any closure of the road. If you have a plan to close the road, you need to inform us or inform the public as soon as possible. For the bypass, in Tsuen Wan District Council, when I was the chairman, it's been 15 years. It took some 15 years before we could see this happen. We have been wanting to see this for a long time. To build one more road on Texaco Road to divert the vehicles to bypass Texaco Road, so that Kwai Fook Road and Yeong Ok Road traffic do not have to go through Texaco Road roundabout, so that the roundabout can be used for some more years. We have had a consensus for a decade or so, and we want to see this happen for the remaining projects. They bypass the roundabout. We have two interchange, one Chunwan interchange. The other one is the interchange in Taichung Road. For these two interchanges, I know that the government actually has some enhancement measures, and I hope that these projects will be carried out in no time. These interchanges are actually the lifeblood of the traffic in the locality, and I'd like to know the extent of the closure of road. Is it necessary to close some roads in certain period of time? Will traffic be affected? Do you have any plans, any projection? Thank you, Chairman. During construction, we understand that TTI is very busy by day. So, in the course of construction, we will try to keep the number of traffic lanes in this area. If road closure is necessary, we will carry out the works in night time. We will have regard to the traffic situation. We will also establish a traffic management liaison team. We will make very careful arrangements in order to minimize the impact on the traffic and the area nearby. Regarding time, you mentioned 2 years. 2 of the projects would be able to be completed, and it would take a total of 3 years for all projects. What is the starting time? It will be the start of the construction. We have already invited tenders. In Q4, this project will go to the PWSC and the Finance Committee. We expect that, we anticipate that we can start the work in Q4 this year or Q1 next year. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, second round. Because of tight time, I will give you 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Members and Chairman have actually followed up on my question. How to ensure the management of the traffic flow during construction as well as road safety. The administration has responded to us. We hope that in the PWSC information papers, you can detail the arrangements so as to give us peace of mind. For item B, Texaco Road, 210 meters in length. There are actually vehicles parked on the roadside for loading and unloading. I'm worried that you cannot solve this problem. Do you have any solution that can get to the root of this problem? Thank you, Member. Thank you, Chairman. For the addition of a traffic lane on Texaco Road, as we said, for the leftmost lane, we would designate it as an area for loading and unloading. For the middle lane, it would be a forbidden area round the clock. This would rationalize the traffic flow and the waiting time of vehicles waiting to enter the car park. This can ensure that there would be 2 traffic lanes for smooth traffic. There will also be traffic management measures to tie in with the construction works. There will be traffic congestion anyway, and there will also be vehicles parked for loading and unloading. You should enhance enforcement action. We will liaise and collaborate with the police force in this connection. For industrial buildings nearby, indeed, the vehicles need to be parked there. It is difficult to ask the lorry drivers to park the vehicles far away from the loading and unloading area. You may want to look into this matter. We would be very happy if there were one lane. That is the situation right now. Do members agree that the administration can submit this project to the PWSC? There's no objection, it seems. Mr. Tony Chair, well, I hope that we will have more information. Information for 5 years is actually not enough. Can the administration give us a clear account in the PWSC? Well, Department, please follow up on members' concern. That is for how long this road can be used. If there is no question, we will support this project to be submitted to the PWSC. We thank the administration for joining us today. Next agenda item. Dueling of Hiram's Highway from Marina Cove to Sai Kung Town. Also representative from the TD. We invite officials to join us. Also, if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest to declare, please declare the nature of the relevant interest before you speak. We invite the administration to walk us through the papers. Amy, please. The second item today is 6806TH, dueling of Hiram's Highway from Marina Cove to Sai Kung Town. We propose upgrading the funding application to Category A. We want to seek members' view. The Hiram's Highway is actually the only traffic lane connecting Sai Kung to Kowloon. During peak hours, there is a high level of traffic volume. We expect that there would be traffic growth leading to more serious traffic congestion. Right now, single two-lane carriageway is in place. If there are any emergency cases or traffic accidents and one traffic lane has to be closed, this will give rise to serious traffic congestion. So, for this section on the Hiram's Highway, we propose this project in order to alleviate traffic and also to enhance the resilience of the concerned roads to unexpected incidents. For the project cost of this item, it will be $3.289 billion. If we have support from members today, we will seek support from PWSC, then we will apply for funding from the Finance Committee. Ms. Judy Oh. Thank you, Chairman. I will walk members through the specifics of the project. If we want to improve the traffic situation, the most effective way is to enhance the capacity of the road. So from Marina Cove to Sai Kung Town, we propose widening works. For Sai Kung bound and Kowloon bound, we recommend the construction of one traffic lane respectively. On Hiram's Highway, some 3.5 kilometers and 400 meters Potong Road, they would be changed into a two-lane carriageway. In Pak Sha Wan, it will be widened to a single four-lane carriageway. Let us take a look at the photo montage in front of us. You will see the widened Hiram's Highway. There are 2 lanes into Sai Kung and 2 lanes leaving Sai Kung to Kowloon. We also propose improving Tai Mong Tai Road and Potong Road, measuring 600 meters. For some sections of the roads, they are not wide enough. After improvements, the whole traffic lane will be 7.3 meters wide, and we will also widen the carriageways to 6.2 meters. For Pak Sha Wan, we will also construct a subway for pedestrians to get across this widened Hiram's Highway. Right.
During busy hours, from Chingshuran Road, Sai Kung Town Center to Chingshuran Road is going to take 35 to 40 minutes. Upon completion of the improvement work, it will be down to 20 minutes. Not only are we widening the road section, we will also improve the road design. We will be improving the curvature to provide a better line of vision for the road users. To enhance road safety, there will also be road crossings. Most of the footpaths will be 2 meters wide to make it safer. Along Hiram's Highway, there will be new bus laybys, and the buses picking up or setting down passengers will not be getting in the way of the traffic behind. At the moment, there are this is single 2-lane carriageway. It would be hard to close any lane for the facilities, for the underground facilities to be laid. And while taking advantage of this project, we will be providing the sewage and also the freshwater pipes. Let's have a look at the price tag. It is estimated that the MOD price will be $3.208 billion. Subject to members' agreement, we will be taking this to the PWSC for support, and we'll be seeking funding from the Finance Committee for funding approval. And there will be a construction and build contract to be awarded, and the contractor will spend about 20 months on the detailed design, and construction will be getting underway thereafter. In 4 to 5 years' time, the Tai Bong Chai Road and Po Tong Road section will be completed. Hiram's Highway would be a little bit more complicated, so it's going to be taking about 6 years, 1 year longer. So much I have to say by way of an introduction. Right, members who wish to put questions, please press the button. Mr. Tony J, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Stanley Lee, Mr. Frankie Yik, Mr. Chen Su-hong, myself, and Mr. Yu Pak Leung. 4 minutes for the Q&A, please. Mr. Tony J. Chairman, thank you. Couple of points, if I may. The paper seems to be rather too simplistic. You should have told us the information ahead of time. That would have saved quite a bit of time. Like the time, the reduction in time, why didn't you include this in the paper? As I read the paper, I certainly would support these kind of improvement work. Hiram's Highway is always chock-a-block full of traffic. And Chairman, as you recall, things are improving. And this is going to take us 8 years. I had a question, but that has been addressed. 8 years, and there will be 3 sections or 3 phases, and the traffic volume will be affected. And also, there are parking spaces that will be reprovisioned. Now, Park Sha Wan, for instance, I understand there are some parking spaces on the roadside. Where are you going to be reprovisioning them to? Chairman, about trees. Para 19 refers to the 20 valuable trees that will be affected. Now, we try to green up the area at places where there is a high volume of traffic and pedestrians. Would you consider the right species that would be planted, like the fast-growing trees, and it might be blocking the road signs and so on? We don't really want to see any tree failure happening in these places. So please have a look at the species. There are some trees which, at a certain age, might give rise to problems. And perhaps you should pick and choose the right species that would not present any problems for a long time. And there are some trees that will be transplanted. Would they be suitable? And Para 7 refer to some of the projects. This is also indicated in the diagrams. Will the noise barriers be included? Where would they be? Will you be seeking additional funding for these. And Guiman Road, will this be included in the project? There are some improvement there. Will these project cover that as well? Now, why don't you explain everything in the paper? Amy, if I may respond to the members' comments about an inclusion of more details, certainly we will try our best to facilitate members' comprehension of the entire project. I defer to the highways. Mr. Zhou? Chairman, thank you. First off, parking. The arrangement is that the existing number of parking spaces will be reprovisioned. And in Checking Duk Road, there will be an additional 40 parking spaces. They will be reprovisioned somewhere nearby. So it will not be too bad for the users nearby. Second, about the tree species. Indeed, this is something near and dear to our heart as well. For trees that are on the roadside, will they be getting in the way of the sight line? Will they be growing too fast? So when we are picking and choosing the tree species, we will exercise due care. Mr. Andrew Lam. Chairman, I have mixed feelings about this project. I've a professional career of more than 30 years, and I mean, this is I am in support of this project. The paper is silent on the design of the right turning, Danhodun Road, Taichung Road. Prior to this going to the PwC, please make this clear. And the Fukman Road roundabout, is it going to be a roundabout anymore? If you widen the road, I mean, this is very much a problem there. Third, Potong Road, the problem lies with the land resumption, and it is very close to the residential dwellings. With the widening of the road, how close would that be to the residential dwellings? I'm going to draw a line there. Please, Mr. Zhang. We will supplement further information when we go to the PwC or the right turning, left turning, the entrances, the exits. Why didn't you make available the information today? Not ready yet? Yes, we do have the preliminary design. Now we are talking about the dual two-lane carriageway, and we are going to have some roundabouts there. Depending on the location, it may take 1 or 2 minutes more. If they want to change the direction, they can use the roundabout. There are no problems with left turning. With this dual two-lane carriageway, they will have to take the next roundabout and double back, and that's the normal arrangement. In some places, we may provide signalized junction, and with the signalized junction, there can be a right-turning movement there. The whole idea is to smooth out the traffic as much as possible. And when prior to going to the PwC, we'll send a supplement information. Mr. Andrew Lam. Well, let me say this first. Up front, I'm not dead against the roundabout. In particular, I'm concerned about the right-turning movement there. Why don't you use the smart lamp posts there? Fukman Road, indeed, it remains a roundabout upon completion of the work. If I may add the noise barriers, and also there will be 12 sets of noise barriers that have been included in this funding proposal. Which section? Why didn't you show us? There are 12 sets, the Mariner Cove, and there are quite a lot along the way. Checking roundabout, there will be some noise barriers, Pak Kong, soccer pitch. Well, as chairman, I'm terribly unhappy about it. You could have included the information, but you haven't. And you're asking us to scrutinize the project. You're seeking our support. It would be really hard for us to exercise our judgment. Do you have the information or do you not have the information? If you have the information, why didn't you include that in the first place? Amy. Chairman, we'll be going to the PWSC to seek member support. There will be more detailed information in the paper. Prior to PWSC, if members would like to have further information, like the turning movement and the acoustic barriers, the location, and so on of these, will certainly be happy to make these available prior to the paper going to the PWSC. Well, indeed. For the technical designs, they will be dealt with by the PWSC. This panel is dealing with policy. But I mean, if you have included information in the first place, it would have saved a lot more time. We're going to be having 4 minutes each. And if you have included the information up front, we could have saved more time for other issues. So when you present the paper, please make it more detailed, make available information as much as possible. Mr. Andrew Lam, any follow-up? Mr. Stanley Lee. Chairman, thank you. This project, like the Chin Wan One, is something that we have been fighting for about a decade or more. I'm happy to see this here. And as a member from that district, I've got some questions. And we do consult the stakeholders a lot. Now, looking at the timetable, I don't think you have addressed this here. The presentation is not sufficiently clear. 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Or are we adding the 4, 5, 6 together, or it's going to take us about 10 years? I don't think it's going to be that long. I hope that the information should be better presented. So altogether, together with the design, it's going to take us 8 years. Can we somehow shorten that? I think this may be a laughing stock internationally. 8 years for this kind of work. Can you be telescoping the time frame for the first phase widening? It takes you a long time. I think for the second phase, building on the first phase experience, I'm sure that you would be able to do it faster. When we communicated with you, you said a lot of survey has been done. Is the alignment been finalized after the surveying work? If this is a finalized alignment, we did talk with the Rural Committee about the land resumption, about the shops, about Tin Hao Temple. Have you talked through these issues with them already?
Mr. Chang, thank you, Chairman. For the first question, this is a rather large-scale project. Over 4 kilometers of road have to be widened compared with Clearwater Bay to Marina Cove. It is 1 time longer. Along the way, there are a lot of retaining walls, slopes. We also need to construct noise barriers. The road is flanked by shops, residential areas, and so on. We need to keep the number of traffic lanes, including passengers, access. All these are very complicated traffic arrangements or traffic detour arrangements. Construction is complicated. There are also water mains and drainage works. Well, I'm asking about whether you can carry all these out in tandem. Simply put, we will do this in parallel. For Tai Mong Tai Road, Potong Road, and Hiram's Highway, we will carry out all these works in tandem. For the alignment, we have already gazetted the alignment. We have already decided on the alignment proposal. What about the impact on store, Tin Hau Temple? During Gazetto, we had a lot of communication with them. Soon, a contractor will be responsible for the detailed design, and the contractor will also touch base with the stakeholders in Tin Hau Temple and so on. They will explain to stakeholders the arrangements and the construction procedures. We will tread very cautiously. Well, you may as well contact Sai Kung District Council as well. Yes, for sure, Mr. Frankie Yik. You have already expressed your dissatisfaction. The fact that some papers were not given to us affected our work. We need to give comments. Otherwise, when you submit the work to the PWSC and we do not agree to it, then you will have to do all these afresh. You should have given us all the information from start. We have been waiting for this section of the road for a long time. It is finally going to materialize. We have heard from the administration it would take about 20 months. You have engaged a contractor to undertake a detailed design. Well, I thought that it would be undertaken by the government. You should compress the timeline. I'm not sure if there is any leeway. Next, about the construction timeline. Basically, that is a single. If there are any hiccups, then there will be problems. Pashawan or Sai Kung, there is actually a paucity of parking spaces. If you are going to work on this, will you consider increasing the number of parking spaces? This sounds very good to me, and I don't see any objection possibly. If this is technically feasible, why are you only going to do it now? Why not a decade? Why not a decade ago? Why not 15 years ago? On parking spaces, I will invite the TD to supplement. Why are we going to do this only now, starting from 2013? We have actually been liaising with residents living nearby. As Mr. Tony Chang said, the whole section of the road is 4.6 kilometers. There are a lot of stores, residential areas nearby. We needed to go back and forth to liaise with residents. There were 29 district consultations as well as public forums. We have tapped the pulse from the public, and we indeed amended the details of the construction. It therefore took some time. Today, in the panel on transport, we hope that we can get started as soon as possible, as design and construction will take place at the same time. So we need to wait until the contractor starts. Then, afterwards, we can start the work as soon as possible. Regarding the number of parking spaces, I will invite TD colleague. In Sai Kung Town, we have a plan for a town square and a stadium in Sai Kung being, well, in the pipeline. We will construct an underground car park, which can accommodate coaches, small to medium coaches, buses. We are in the preliminary design phase. The ASD will conduct a detailed study into this plan in order to estimate the number of parking spaces that can be offered to the public. In Sai Kung Town, well, of course, we are well aware of that, but what about Pak Sha? Is there any place where you can add some more car parking spaces? Thank you, Chairman. We also want to identify places where we can add parking spaces. As I mentioned, we have added 40 parking spaces in Chai Tong Tok Road. We have identified this area. The Hiram's Highway is very narrow on both sides. It is difficult to locate open space to have more parking spaces. We are already doing our level best. Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. During peak hours and on holidays, the Hiram's Highway is very much congested. There are a lot of bends. Accidents might easily happen, and this would lead to traffic congestion. A lot of citizens have first-hand experience, and there is actually no reason for me not to support it. As members have already reflected, there is much room for improvement for information papers. We need to understand the train of thought of the administration. We shouldn't wait until the PWSC before we can have more information. Our decision right now is whether we will endorse your proposal so that it can be submitted to the PWSC. You cannot assume that we will allow you to go to the PWSC. Member is very right. Our time is valuable. We only have 4 minutes for question and answers. So you should give us as much information as you can. For PowerPoint slides, it is self-explanatory. You should have given us the information earlier. Widening works take 8 years, and it cost $3.2 billion. This is a staggering figure, but I will not make light of the difficulty of the project, whether by slope cutting works. These are very challenging. During construction or the 20 months of design, we hope that you can compress the timeline. We hope that you can expedite the progress. But for the impact on traffic flow and road safety, this is close to my heart, and I hope that you can account for all these in the information papers. In the panel on environmental affairs, we discussed an agenda item in the panel meeting in order to be cost-effective. In this project, apart from the widening works of the road, we will also tie in with the water mains and drainage laying work. My question is that during construction, how can you control the traffic flow and minimize impact on residents living nearby? How will you strike a balance? I hope that you can give us an answer right now instead of waiting until the PWSC. Then we may identify more problem. Does the amount of $3.2 billion include water mains laying works? The amount actually does not cover water mains laying works. It will be subject to funding approval by the Finance Committee. In road widening works, we want to finish water mains and drainage or sewerage laying works in one go in order to minimize impact. It is very difficult for the DSD to carry out laying works, as the closure of the road will also have a bearing on traffic flow. We want to seize this opportunity to solve all the issues so that we can get things done in a shorter period of time, and we can also minimize impact on citizens. What about the order of the project or the responsibility? We want to have a better understanding of the picture. Thank you, member. Simply put, in the public works contract with the contractor is responsible for road widening works as well as water mains, drainage, and sewerage laying works. So the contractor is responsible for coordination and making arrangements. Of course, the highways will collaborate with them. The TD, the police force, will also study the arrangements of road closure and construction The principle is that we will first start with road widening. Along the hillside, we will build retaining walls and widen the area. Then we will change the location of the road. We need to vacate the area before we can carry out the road widening works. In the middle of the road section, we will also carry out the road widening works. The construction is very technical, very complicated. We also need to maintain liaison with different stakeholders and units. Next, Mr. Yu Pak Leung. Thank you, Chairman. The construction works in the Hiram's Highway. All members would definitely support it. This problem has been plaguing us for a long time. From the perspective of tourism, Sai Kung is rich in tourism resources. The Sai Kung area is full of characteristics. We have very good geological features and a beautiful coastline. But we do not have enough supporting facilities such as the pier. So tour groups are concentrated in touristy areas. That is because of the lack of supporting facilities. Commuting time will take probably half a time. So how can tourists go through all the tourist spots? I've taken a look at the overall design of the project. From Marina Cove to Clearwater Bay, you have finished it. But what about the later section? That does not go a long way towards the situation as a whole. You only finished the Hiram's Highway to the roundabout in Wyman Road, as far as I understand. From the roundabout on Wyman Road, then the road section is actually very narrow and there is frequently traffic congestion. For those living in Sha Tin, we go to Sha Tin through Sai Sha Road, and that section of road is actually very narrow. There is often traffic congestion if you do not factor this stretch of the road in. Apart from the widening work of Hiram's Highway, you need to consider the roundabout on Sai Sha Road and the overall traffic volume on Sai Sha Road. You need to take a holistic view of the situation. Only then can you improve the accessibility of Hiram's Highway and Sai Sha Road. Does the administration have any plan? The highways, please. Mr. Stephen Cole. The improvement works of Hiram's Highway has included Tai Mong Chai Road and the roundabout on Sai Sha Road. To estimate the future traffic volume, from the objective assessment, the major traffic flow start from Clearwater Bay going into Sai Kung Town Center. Some vehicles go from Ma On Shan through Sai Sha Road and Tai Mong Chai Road to Sai Kung. But the traffic growth is not substantial. The TD and the highways in this project for Tai Mong Chai Road near Sai Kung Town Center, measuring 600 meters, there is already a road widening work. We believe that the traffic in Tai Mong Chai Road will be able to cope with the future traffic demand. Thank you, Chairman.
I hope that the TD will seriously have a look at this. Near the Sai Sha Road roundabout, it is pretty bad during holidays and weekends. We use Sai Sha Road instead of Hiram's Highway on our way to the urban areas, and I really do hope that you would pay attention to this. I hope you heard that, TD. My turn next. Now, 2,000 trees will be felled. Some of them are valuable trees. Has the administration considered some ways to avoid felling the trees. How many of them will be transplanted? Now, for the valuable trees, if they have to go, is it quite inevitable? Are there any other ways in terms of design that can avoid this kind of scenario? And Clearwater Bay Road is also pretty heavy from HKUST through to Zhongguanou. Every single morning, it is pretty congested. Hiram's Highway widening is going to be taking place, and the residents near Clearwater Bay Road also have the same expectation, and there will be new developments that will be coming on stream going forward. As time goes by, it would be compounding the traffic situation. You resolve the problem in Sai Kung, but if you do not resolve the problem in Clearwater Bay Road, it would be just as bad. Some are going to Zhongguanou. Unless you widen the Clearwater Bay Road, we're going to be stuck with the same problem. So will the Zhongguanou line be extended to all the way so that people can park and ride and people don't drive to urban areas that much? All right, perhaps I put those questions first. Amy, Chairman. As to the extension of either the rail or the EFLS to the HKUSD, we heard the comments. As you are aware, Chairman, we are conducting a feasibility study. This center will be covered by the study. By the time we're done with the study, we will certainly bring members up to date. As to trees, I defer to Mr. Zhang. Chairman, it's only in an inevitable situation that we would remove the trees. When we design the roads, we have to make sure that it is safe. The bend and everything will have to be safe. And there are residential dwellings and shops on either side of the road. So we have to consider these elements. In some situations, it is quite inevitable that we have to have them removed. When the contractor comes in, it will be coming up with a more detailed report recommending the kinds of trees that will be removed. The administration will study them. It's only with the inevitability that they will be removed. We will be doing compensatory planting. We've got to be careful with trees. If trees are growing too much, too fast, they will be getting away off the sideline. And we will consider the green belt area in the central divider for trees to be planted. Well, I hope that when it comes to tree felling, you ought to tell us whether there is any element of inevitability. What is the meaning of inevitability? And we hope that there will be a rail extension to the HKUST, and I hope that you will liaise with the universities, see how they can tie in with that. Right, do you all agree that we submit this paper to the PWSC? Right, we'll make it quick. No objection. All in agreement. This will go to the PWSC. Thank you very much for being with us. The next item is the use of electric mobility devices in Hong Kong. Shall we invite the administration in, please? Just a reminder that if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest relating to the paper, please make the disclosure accordingly. I'd like to welcome the administration for this item. Please take us through the paper as and when you're ready, and I throw the floor open for questions. we will be pushed for time. All right, please take us through the paper. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much, members. The administration would like to put in place a regulatory framework relating to the EMD, electric mobility devices, and there will be legislative amendments that they would like to consult members on. At the moment, the EMDs are mechanically propelled, and they fall within the definition of motor vehicles under the Road Traffic Ordinance, and they must be licensed before use on roads or on private roads. The use of unlicensed or unregistered EMDs may contravene the relevant laws. In order to get the actual experience in 2021-22 at Zheng Guanhou South and Hong Kong Science Technology Park, we conducted a trial, and we also conducted questionnaire survey. 1,500 people were polled. Some of them are EMD users, some of them are cyclists, some are pedestrians. Most of them are in support of the use of EMDs, but 30–40% of the people polled did express reservations, citing safety concerns. As technology is developing, the design and the technology of EMD are improving, the costs are coming down, and they're getting popular in many other jurisdictions in the world. They are progressively regulating the use of EMDs. After consideration, we adopt a prudent approach, which is safety-based. We are taking forward this in a phased manner in order to encourage green mobility. I'm sure that with good regulation, in new development areas with good cycle tracks, we propose that the EMDs be allowed to use in certain sections, and also subject to all the regulation regarding the EMDs for safety's sake. So, Chairman, I defer to my colleague for a PPT presentation, and then I welcome any questions from members. Mr. Shea. Chairman, thank you. I will very briefly take members through the regulatory framework and the details regarding EMDs. As you can see from the PowerPoint, we have a wide variety of EMDs, and they are evolving in design, so the regulations should be different, and they should be targeted in order to achieve effective regulation. There are two types of EMDs. On the left-hand side, they are the PAPC, power-assisted pedal cycles. Basically, they have a motor fitted. PAPC, when the user pedals, there will be the motorized assistance that would render assistance on slopes. Now, when the PAPC hits a certain speed level, the power assistance will be cut off. We also have the e-scooters and e-hoverboards and e-unicycles, and they are the PMDs, motorized personal mobility devices. As to the details of the regulation, we have to cover the EMD, the user, and the road use. We have to look at these three aspects in our regulatory framework. First, in terms of the users, to make sure that the users will have a responsible attitude and behavior, and they can manipulate the devices. The age threshold will be pitched at 16 years old, and this is in line with other jurisdictions. In order to ensure safety, the users should wear a helmet. There can be no pillion riders on these devices, and We also have a code for reference by the users. Make sure that they understand what safe and responsible use of these EMDs mean. Second, about the EMDs, in terms of the technical and safety requirements, we have had regard to the situation in other jurisdictions. We've also had regard to the test results locally. We have to make it safe, we have to make it feasible, and on this basis, we put together the regulatory framework in terms of the operating speed, the size, and so on. Now, for PMDs, the speed limit is 25 kilometers per hour, and there will be no faster than the 25 kilometers per hour. And the weight is 20 to 25 kg, and the length is 1.25 meters. And for the PAPCs, once it hits 25 kilometers, there will be no more acceleration, and the weight is 25 kilograms, and the length is 1.8 millimeters, or 1.8 meters. And they also should have the white and red lights at the front and at the back. There will be a red reflector, and the batteries will have to be in line with the international or mainland standards. And they also should have a warning device. How can we achieve this? We're going to have a certification arrangement for these EMDs. There will be a certification body that would be assessing whether they are in compliance with all the regulations before they will be certified to use. And there will be a QR code, an identifiable QR code for identification purposes. And this will be linked with all the model, the sizes, and the weight, and so on. And that would facilitate enforcement by the law enforcement agencies. Finally, about the road use. Again, we have taken into account the arrangement in other parts of the world. We have to bear in mind the densely populated character in Hong Kong. We have to make sure that the EMD should not have any shared use of the road space, but we would allow the compliant EMDs to be used on suitable cycle tracks. Now, for the PAPC, power-assisted pedal cycles, they are similar to bicycles. They will be allowed to go on the cycle tracks. For roads and carriageways, they should stop the power-assisted function, and they should be used as normal bicycle. The second type is PMD. We would allow these to be going on the suitable cycle tracks, and they have to have a better design standard, like 3.5 meter wide, and they have high connectivity, and so on. When the legislation is in place, we will be considering opening up more suitable cycle tracks for the PMDs.
Next, on penalty, we recommend the offences for EMD should draw reference from the similar offences in bicycles. For more serious offences, such as illegal alteration of vehicles, we should draw reference from the offences for motor vehicles in order to ensure the safety of other road users. For more minor offences, we recommend the establishment of a fixed penalty system or fixed fine system. For example, for using non-labeled EMD, the suggested penalty is $2,000 in fine. For the definition of electric wheelchairs, it is actually an assistive tool for walking. They mainly help the mobility impaired to move on pavements, so they should be different from motor vehicles. Firstly, they should be designed and manufactured for the disabled or for the mobility impaired, so that there can be a clear definition. They are not motor vehicles. In the code, we will also include more instructions or guidelines, such as a suitable moving speed on pavements and the compliance with the relevant rules or laws the pedestrians have to comply with. I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes. There are 11 members waiting to speak: Dominic Lee, Kenneth Lau, Lam San Kang, Chan Hock Fong, Yu Pak Leung, Chen Siu Hong, Michael Tian, Andrew Lam, Frankie Yik Yim Kong, and Chen Han Pan. Question and answer 4 minutes. Dominic Lee, please. Thank you, Chairman. The department's work is the best manifestation of the principle of one country, two systems. In the last agenda item, Marina Cove, well, I moved in at the age of 11 and I'm 39 right now. We are still talking about this issue for EMD, electric mobility devices. Electric scooters were popular 7 to 8 years ago. 3 years ago, before I entered LegCo, I was not a district councillor. The then Housing and Transport Bureau equivocated about the handling of EMDs, but for a lot of overseas jurisdictions, they already have regulations over EMDs. First, my question is that why are our departments very conservative in relation to the regulation over EMDs? Such devices in Europe, the US, in China, in mainland China, they are very popular. But for the very same type of tools, why are they much more dangerous in Hong Kong? Have we actually drawn reference from other areas, other countries that are equally busy as Hong Kong? For the requirement of front white lamp and rear red lamp, as far as I understand, for a lot of electric scooters, they do not have this requirement. Given the smaller market in Hong Kong, why do you think that the manufacturers of these EMDs will adjust the design of the EMDs just because of the Hong Kong market? If there is no adjustment, will it be very difficult for Hong Kong citizens to buy these tools? For the trial scheme, you are not covering all cycle tracks in Hong Kong. You only cover some cycle tracks in Hong Kong. Why do you not expedite your work? Mr. Edward Mack. In a moment, on a technicality such as front white lamp and rear red lamp, I will invite the TD to supplement. All along, we have been keeping a close eye on the situation of EMDs around the world. We have drawn reference from different countries. In 2020, we were in this panel. We had the direction of setting down a regulatory framework. But first, we needed a test. We invited citizens to take part in a test so that we can take stock of the experience. After all, there are a lot of loading and unloading activities or pickup drop-up activities in Hong Kong. In fact, in Pak Shek Kok and in Chang Kwan O, while we were conducting a test, 1,500 citizens gave us comments. the comments are actually divided. Some were supportive, some thought that we might have to tread more cautiously. Therefore, in the trial scheme, we recommended getting started on wider cycle tracks. If it is safe, then we would expand the scope to other cycle tracks as well. So that was put to test. We are pushed for time. You don't have time anymore. Mr. Kenneth Lau. EMDs are convenient. Well, I mean, one can conveniently carry them around. It would be very good for citizens to use them for short commuting. With EMDs getting more and more popular and more safety issues arising, according to statistics, a total of 72 accidents happened. There were 6 fatalities, so I support the administration's regulation over EMDs. And I do have a question for the government. Hong Kong has a lot of vehicles, roads are narrow, regulations are understandable. But this, at the same time, curtails the potential of development for EMDs. For the Northern Metropolis, for Yen Chow Artificial Island, EMDs may have quite good potential for development in these areas, such as for short commuting devices and as connectors to different park and ride facilities. Does the administration have any plan? Mr. Edward Mack. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member. Indeed, we need to adopt a safety-oriented approach in driving the development of EMD. In new development areas, will we allow the use of EMDs? Yes, that is our plan. We are conducting transport and traffic strategic studies. We have considered different commuting options, including the concept of a transportation hub, in order to provide convenience to citizens so that they can have park and ride facilities. We are considering any storage places for EMDs so that citizens can leverage the facilities to facilitate park and ride. Mr. Lam Siu-lo. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I do not object to the government floating these policies. But I think that it is actually very difficult to expect citizens to comply with all the laws. These can only be used on cycle tracks, as we know. A lot of places in Kowloon or on Hong Kong Island do not have cycle tracks. Some cycle tracks are actually fragmented. They are leading to nowhere. EMDs are not for leisure, are not for sports. They are for commuting. Overseas, a lot of people use EMDs on pavements or on driveways even. Is the government getting out of touch of the reality in Hong Kong? Well, do not get me wrong. I actually support legislating the use of EMDs, but there should be expectation. You should expect the citizens to comply with the law. Otherwise, you should outlaw the use of EMDs right away. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Lam. As the TD introduced, there are 2 categories of EMDs, one scooter and one PAPC, power-assisted pedal cycle. For PAPC, they are similar to bicycles. So, on all cycle tracks, they can be used. They can also be used on driveways. But they cannot be power-assisted. They cannot be mechanically operated. For scooters, For self-balancing scooters, there were 1,000 or so citizens taking part in the survey. 30% to 40% of the respondents expressed worry. They think that we should adopt a step-by-step approach. We will also collaborate with district organizations. We will hold courses to instill the knowledge of EMDs or the concept of EMDs so that day by day we can promote the wider use of EMDs. And I will invite the TD to supplement on the overseas experience in relation to EMDs. On pavements, in overseas jurisdictions, EMDs are actually forbidden. In some countries, in particular, they have relaxed the regulation of EMDs, but then afterwards, they are also banned on pavements. There are safety concerns. There is interaction between EMDs and ordinary bicycles, but on pavements, pedestrians will have to get accustomed to the fast interaction with EMDs. We have considered the differences among different pavements. Some are wider, some are narrower. Because of this, we recommend banning the use of EMDs on pavements. Mr. Chen Haofeng.
其實就住呢
Thank you, Chairman. On regulating EMDs, this is to tie in with the development of society, and I support regulations in this connection. But I think that you should regulate these EMDs in a better manner. You have specific requirements before you will label the EMDs. But for the EMD users, you actually issue a guideline, but they can choose whether they will read it. Data also showed that there were fatalities in the use of EMDs. So have you ever considered mandating EMD users to take courses that are mandatory courses or mandatory videos before they can use EMDs on cycle tracks? Well, I think this is necessary. This can ensure that EMD users have a correct, appropriate driving attitude. For new devices, they have a label. But what about old devices? For those in the market, for those being sold in the market, how can we certify these devices? Or do they have to buy new devices afresh? Apart from cycle tracks, have you considered collaborating with the LCSD, for example, for the promenade, for our park? EMDs can also be allowed in these areas, given the fact that they can be controlled at an appropriate speed. What I think your planning is not comprehensive enough. Next, you are not going to allow EMDs to be used on driveways, and that is correct. But what about bicycles? You are actually allowing bicycles on driveways. But that is equally dangerous. They are disregarding traffic conditions. Why do you not regulate the use of bicycles on driveways? For electric wheelchairs, I support your proposal, especially for those that really require an electric wheelchairs. But you need to enhance enforcement actions against those who do not find it necessary to use electric wheelchairs. We commonly see some wheelchair users dashing into MTR stations. You need to take enforcement actions. You need to walk the talk.
多謝議
Mr. Mack. Thank you, Chairman. When we roll out the regulatory framework, we have to make sure that the users should know about the code of for the users. There should also be penalties, as the TT explained a moment ago. We also have the proposed fixed penalty tickets to enhance the law enforcement action. Also, in terms of the operating speed, the size, the length and width, there should be specification by the manufacturers. So, like bicycles, we don't propose any training to start with, but I'm grateful to members for the reminder. We'll be liaising with the professional bodies and the local community organizations to get across the safety message. And there are courses that provided for this purpose. For the existing EMDs, they are against the law to use them on the road, and I hope that people will purchase on the basis of our information. For the existing products, we don't rule out the possibility that some of them are in compliance, and the retailers can also help these product owners to get the certification. We'll be working together with the LCSD and the AFCD to see how we can regulate the EMDs, and they will be revising the relevant requirements for their venues. For bicycles, they're allowed on the road, and in the meantime, we will be looking at the situation to see whether we should make it more stringent in terms of the penalty. Thank you. Mr. Perry Yu, Chairman, thank you. With regard to the regulatory framework to allow the EMDs to be used in Hong Kong in phases, I subscribe to this direction. I'm in support. However, I am a little bit mystified about the way of thinking on the part of the administration. For the EMDs, do you see them as toys for recreational use, or do you see them as mobility devices? That the positioning is very important. For the cycle tracks, they are designed for recreational purposes. Honestly, you cannot use the cycle tracks to go to where you really want to go, so there's not much of use for mobility, except maybe in Tai Po. So how do you position this in the first place? Second, in terms of law enforcement, this is something of concern to me. It would be terribly difficult to take enforcement action. How are you going to go about doing it? Like the e-scooters, for instance. For bicycles, you have to get off at the junction. You can't really cycle through the junction because you're liable to be prosecuted. For e-scooters, do people have to get off the e-scooter and get back on after the junction? For the PAPC, power-assisted pedal cycles, you can use it on the carriageway if you turn off the power. Otherwise, you'll be on the wrong side of the law. Now, how do you actually enforce the law? It would be hard for you to judge whether they have cut off the power. They may be pedaling, but they are in fact using the power. But how can you judge that? Mr. Mack. Chairman, thank you. We are amending the road traffic ordinance for this purpose, and through this legislative amendment, we will encourage the green mobility, and this is what we are striving for. As I said in answer to other members' questions, perhaps the EMD can take people to the bus interchange for park and ride and so on. As to the details, I defer to Mr. Shea. If I may supplement about the positioning in terms of the transport policy, like Mr. Mack said, this is a kind of short-distance commuting device. It is no different from bicycles. So in terms of law enforcement, it is not dissimilar to bicycles. A bicycle, a cyclist will have to get off the bike and push the bike across the junction. And in terms of law enforcement, this is similar for the EMDs. And we don't have a situation where the cyclists will get off, the EMD users will ride right through. And we're introducing a new enforcement mode, and that is the fixed penalty tickets. And we are using the summonses to enforce the law against bicycles. That would be far more effective if we can impose a fixed penalty for minor offense. Certainly would achieve better deterrent effect. Now about the PAPC, power-assisted pedal cycles, how can we differentiate whether the power is being activated in terms of design? Maybe if they are using the power assistance, there would be some lighting, some indicator to enable the law enforcement agency to make the judgment. And this is technically feasible. In Japan, for instance, they have similar devices. When it hits a certain speed, there would be a flashing indicator to indicate that. Mr. Chen Shu-ho, Chairman, as technology is developing and EMD is gaining traction, and we're going to have a wide variety of products, and there are many users of different ages, but they are posing some safety hazard to other road users. I am in support of the administration's attempt to impose a regulatory framework for the users, for the EMDs, and also for the road use, and bringing this in on the cycle tracks in phases for safety's sake. My question is about law enforcement. In terms of regulation and law enforcement, Para 13 says that the EMD should be assessed by recognized certification bodies on their compliance, and compliant models will be certified, and there will be a QR code affixed to them for easy identification. Now my question is, what is the certification body? How can the members of the public make sure that the EMDs that they purchase are in compliance, are recognized products? If they buy some products that are not in compliance and get prosecuted, what's going to happen? And what are parallel imports? How can the authority make sure that the EMDs will be well maintained to ensure safety? Like if there is a requirement for annual maintenance, and if the batteries or the EMDs become faulty, would there be any prosecution? And Para 8 refers to the imposition of a fixed penalty system. So you will be prosecuting on the spot the non-compliant users. In order to avoid any disputes, will only the police or the traffic warden be able to take out prosecution action? Will other departments be able to do likewise? Thank you. Mr. Mack, thank you. Thanks very much for the question. I'm going to defer to Mr. Zheng from the TD on the technical aspect of the questions. In terms of maintenance, first, we're going to have the code of practice, which reminds the users and the members of the public as to how they should maintain the device, like the battery. They have to make sure that it will not catch fire, and there will be code of practice in relation to repair and maintenance. Also, we will be mounting publicity together with the community organizations and professional bodies for some training courses to be provided to enhance awareness there. As to prosecution, the FPN, the fixed penalty notices will be used to facilitate law enforcement, but we will be liaising with the police to see whether technology can be harnessed to facilitate on-the-spot enforcement to gather evidence. With your indulgence, Chairman, I'll be deferring to Mr. Cheung on the technical aspects. Mr. Cheung, please. Chairman, thank you. If I may add, Mr. Mack has already touched on this a little bit. Now, about the labels, we are emphasizing that now, after the legislation has been put in place, the EMDs will have to measure up to the technical and safety requirements, and they should partner with the recognized labs, and we are liaising with the Productivity Council to see whether there are recognized labs that will be carrying out the certification for the manufacturers, and there will be labels. We'll be mounting publicity, and members of the public will then know that the products that are labeled will be in compliance. If they're using these kind of products on the designated areas, they will be okay. As to the FPN, the fixed penalty tickets, will be stepping up liaison with the police. It's only for minor offences like unlabeled devices. It would be very easy to spot whether there is any label, so it would be easier for FPN to be used. Mr. Chen, very quickly, Chairman. We may buy the EMDs from the mainland or overseas, and they don't come with any labels, and they cannot be used. Is that right? So it's only the products from the recognized manufacturers that can be used. Mr. Zhang, well, we have to make sure that things are safe because in some cases there may be some fire arising from the battery charging. Mr. Michael Tin, Chairman, personally, in June 2022, I already raised this issue of regulating the EMDs, and definitely the roundtable would be welcoming this. I've got a couple of questions in the paper. The penalty is really rather ambiguous. Some members said that there were fatalities arising from the use of the EMDs, and for motor vehicles or motorcycles, you have clear provision. Bicycles, it is ambiguous, and for EMDs, you said you would have regard to the current situation, and this is extra doubly ambiguous as far as I am concerned. So, will you be working on the basis of motor vehicles, or will you be working on the basis of bicycles? They are vastly different in terms of the penalty and regulation. Second, for the EMDs, they'll be allowed on designated cycle tracks up to 25 km per hour, but for bicycles or PAPC, it would be higher. It doesn't make any logical sense. I mean, if accidents happen, accidents happen. Will you be reviewing the cycle tracks, the speed limit for the bicycles? It would be easier for enforcement.
Thirdly, in terms of hardware, 25 kilometers is the cap. You have to take strict law enforcement action. The Roundtable has been advocating the use of artificial allowance in CCTV to detect bicycle speed. 50 kilometers for bicycles. This is actually a toothless tiger. If there are no police officers on patrol, it will be difficult to detect the speed, like when I was bicycling with my grandsons. There were actually no officers monitoring the situation. Next, the document mentioned certification system, and you mentioned affixing a QR code. But I can actually source one from an overseas country, and then I can affix a label to a device with a much higher horsepower. Is it allowed? Next, you said that this device needs to be equipped with an alert system. Will you have regulations over how the alert system should be kept? For example, will you mandate that the user has to hold the device? Mr. Abermac, thank you, member, for your support. After test, if the EMDs can be controlled at the speed of 25 kilometers per hour, they will be akin to bicycles. We will from time to time take stock of the situation of bicycles. Bicycles have always been the focal point of law enforcement action of the police force. Over these few years, there have been 5,000 to 6,000 cases covering different breaches. On bicycles, there will be reckless bicycling or careless bicycling. In offenses against the person, where evidence is cogent, then these offenses will also apply. We will maintain a close dialogue with the police force. For motorized personal mobility devices, we will also consider penalty, like EMDs. We will also consider penalty for power-assisted pedal cycles, as Mr. Makutian mentioned. Will we enhance the deterrent effect? We will also study this matter with law enforcement agencies. Member mentioned 2 speeds on cycle track. The speed is 50 kilometers per hour. However, on the product level, we will limit the speed of the devices to 25 kilometers per hour. We will take this approach. We will also from time to time review the speed limit of cycle tracks. We will review the situation as often as we need to. We maintain liaison with the police force for reckless bicycling, careless bicycling. Well, what about fatalities in bicycle accidents? As I said, there are different ordinances. There are different offenses such as reckless, careless, etc. What about the handheld alert system? We will also consider this. Thank you for reminding us thank you for reminding us. We will also detail the use of the alert system. Mr. Yim Kong. Thank you, Chairman. I support regulation over EMDs. With different enhancements of EMDs. Some can be foldable, some are not heavy. One can carry these EMDs around conveniently and easily. One can apply for government labels, and there are technical issues. If the owner of the EMDs would like to use the EMD on different stretches of the road, while on some sections there are no cycle tracks, so the owner can only bring the EMDs on board a bus, on board an MTR, and so on. Has the administration liaised with the MTRCL or bus operator to see whether these EMDs can be brought on board? If there is no such label, which means that this is illegal, it cannot be imported, is the MTRCL held responsible for identifying whether these are allowed or not? Questions about the label. Mr. Edward Mack, I will invite Mr. She from the TD to take the questions. We liaise with different major transport operators, such as bus operators and MTLCL. EMDs can be brought on board MTR. If they are not in motion, usually, in general, they can be brought on board. For buses, they are deemed as baggage. When we firm up the details, we will finalize the regulations in due course to see how we can allow the EMDs to be brought on board. No follow-up? No follow-up. My turn. The more restrictions, the less popularized. The more restrictions, the more likely one will break the law. We not only need to regulate the use of EMDs, we also need to see how we can provide a suitable context for the use of EMDs. So, in future planning, it would be good if we can allow EMDs to be used in more places and we can popularize EMDs. Which are suitable places for EMDs? Well, rural areas. There are no vehicles in rural areas in the evening. After 9 p.m., for example, EMD will stand us in good stead if there are actually no minibuses in the evening in rural areas. People can go home with EMDs. But when they cannot be used outside of cycle tracks, then these EMDs will not be able to help them. Rural areas are actually in lack of cycle tracks. No one will be willing to carry around these EMDs measuring 20 kilograms around if they are not allowed to drive the EMDs. So, is it possible that you allow EMDs to be used in rural areas? You can designate some areas in the rural area so that EMDs can be used. Is it possible? Will you consider this? We need lights and flashes reflecting the speed of the EMDs. Mr. Dominic Lee asked about whether there are such products in the market so they can be used as approval. If manufacturers need to do something out of their way to meet the standard of Hong Kong, will they be willing to do so? Will the choices be actually fewer if there are such restrictions? Mr. She, at present, in ordinary rural roads, we do not have clear delineation for pedestrians, bicycles, or EMDs. It is indeed difficult for users to get used to the environment. But in the long term, in Northern Metropolis, when there are well-planned cycle track networks, we may be able to think how we can build better cohesion, and we need more detailed planning in due course. For roads in the rural area, that are of a particular width. We may be able to approve the use of EMDs or bicycles to be used on these bike lanes. These are worth our consideration, so that we can achieve the purpose of driving the use of EMDs in new development areas, that is, in these active transport modes. There are quite a lot of products in the community that can meet the standard of front lamps and rear lamps. If the Hong Kong market is large enough, even if we need to add a rear lamp design, it is also feasible from the perspective of cost or technicality. We hope that you will seriously consider the use of EMDs in the rural areas. Otherwise, you will have to wait until much later before they can be used in northern metropolis. There is a need in rural areas or villages. If there are applications for using EMDs on the roads in rural areas, I hope that you will maintain an open-minded attitude in approving their applications. For example, in villages, from their houses to public transportation stations. If you still outlaw EMDs, then EMDs will lose their value. They will become devices for leisure. And that is a waste of these EMDs. There being no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
好。